Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Electric Viking. Fantastic to see you. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. There's been a really big surge in subscribers over the last 7 days. And I have to say, I'm stoked to see you all here. Now, this is a video you need to watch because Toyota is still trying to con you into thinking that they are planning for the future. And it seems as though even Cleantechnica and some of its fans are on board with this Toyota mythology. And I'm going to explain to you exactly why this mythology is being spread by Toyota and why Toyota is still continuing to perpetuate this idea that they are firmly in control of the wheel when in fact they are floundering. Now, I was sent a message by somebody who I can't name, who said this: love the channel and the take on Toyota. I'm a year employee of the Woodstock plant where we built the Ray EV. The lies and details behind what happened back then are even more gross than generally known. You could say I like electric vehicles. I'm disgusted with my employer. The management has already ditched all the lifeboats and the band is playing. Now, that's one of the long-term Toyota employees who is also an engineer. Now, he also said there are two plants in Canada that build the RAV4s, both 50 kilometers from each other. The last few years have been an eye-opener, both on behalf of Toyota and the government. Once COVID hit, a friend made me watch a bunch of Tesla videos. It was then that I clued into what was going on and how bad it really was. Our situation as a company, I mean. I worked at Woodstock in 2010, brand new plant for RAV4s. And in 2012, we built the electric RAV4 with the Tesla powertrain. Where the head of the company's head is at, Toyota Akio, none of us can explain. I have theories, but it's a long conversation. Now, as many of you know, Toyota did in fact build an electric RAV4 way back in 2012. Then they ditched the project. They ditched their shares in Tesla, which would now be worth, I think, around about $20 billion. Quite a lot of money. And then they've proceeded to engage in a smear campaign against electric vehicles ever since, even going beyond that and paying to lobby politicians and governments in different countries around the world. They're still doing it today. Now, Cleantechnica reports that there is a way that Toyota may be able to pivot and survive the electric vehicle disruption. I'm going to share this article with you, which I strongly disagree with, and I'll tell you why. Here at Cleantechnica, we haven't been big fans of Toyota. Most recently, Steve Hanley wrote a fine article about Toyota's CEO and its grandson of its founder, who was saying that he was saying actually that millions of jobs would be lost if we moved to electric vehicles. He said, in fact, 5.5 million jobs would be lost in the Japanese automotive industry alone. What Toyota's CEO seems to miss is that more jobs will be lost if he doesn't move to EVs. In this article, I'll talk about some of Toyota's advantages and how it can leverage them to survive this very difficult time for all traditional automakers. I know some of you want to see Toyota fail for some of the actions it has taken to slow the electrification of the industry. And you may very well get your wish. But that isn't what this article is about. This article is about how Toyota could pivot in a way that is different from other automakers. The easy thing for me to write would be that Toyota should be just like Volkswagen and develop a broad plan to produce state-of-the-art electric vehicles. I think it needs to do that, but that will take 5 or more years to produce some good results. Toyota needs a plan to survive until then, because this market is shifting to electric vehicles quickly, even more quickly than I imagined was possible. He goes on to describe a parallel between IBM and Toyota, which I think is just irrelevant to the point, so I'll move on and not share that with you. Toyota, after it has lost face and been humbled, will need to take a similar route. It will need to aggressively cut costs and break promises it has made to its executives, workers, and even sites, and even cities if it wants to survive. It is also possible that the Japanese government will bail out the workers, or maybe the workers and the company. Toyota still has a good reputation with many customers. It has upset environmentalists after being their hero 20 years ago with the Prius, but it still has many fans that it can leverage to survive this transition. Now, personally, I don't believe that its fans are willing to pay more money for a significantly inferior product. I'm not sure the fact that it has brand fans necessarily means that the majority of those brand fans will stay loyal in the face of having to purchase a product that is far inferior for more money. Steps I recommend for Toyota. Toyota has not done the work to roll out the EVs it needs to be competitive with early adopters in many markets, but it does have a lead in hybrids and should use that lead to survive until it has time to develop the EVs it needs. Here are the steps that I recommend. Put an electric motor in every car as quickly as you can. Ramp up production. For example, I covered this when Toyota designed the Sienna minivan. The company decided it might as well make it a hybrid as standard equipment. Although that adds a couple $1,000s in additional cost for the small battery and electric motor, it can save money by producing additional power for the car at key times without adding a turbo. It also gets 50% better fuel mileage, cutting fuel costs by $10,000 over the life of the vehicle. Furthermore, it reduces emissions, which helps the company's public image, and in regions like Europe that fine you for having high emissions, it saves you real money. Number 2, as I discussed in a previous article, making serial hybrids in which the gas engine has no connection to the wheels and just acts as a generator has certain advantages. You are converting all your accessories to electric, water, pump, air conditioning, brake assist, steering assist, etc. This is helping your suppliers prepare for an EV future more quickly. This is a good idea. A serial hybrid doesn't need an expansive transmission, and Toyota could greatly reduce costs on engines by having just 1 or 2 simple generators that run at a constant speed when electricity is needed. Serial hybrids need small batteries about the same size as Toyota's parallel hybrids. Number 3, as they get more battery supply, they can convert more models to plug-in hybrids, which, as I discussed in this article, can greatly reduce fossil fuel use and emissions if people plug them in. In general, I don't think a plug-in is worth the hassle if you can't put 30 miles of range or so on it. Many of the incentives governments give also require a battery of a certain size or a certain range, so don't make a plug-in hybrid unless you can meet those requirements. Pretty hard to meet those requirements in most countries. I don't see the point here because pretty much every country you need at least a 200 kilometer range, so you're not going to get that from a plug-in hybrid. So anyway, number 4, Toyota is experienced in being the last to offer something. The last, yep. When the Detroit Big Three abandoned sedans a few years ago, Toyota kept making a full line of sedans. It recently announced it is discontinuing the Avalon. They were forced to go to Toyota. When people who were lifelong Chevy buyers went to buy a new sedan, they were forced to go to Toyota, Honda, Volkswagen, or Mazda, since Chevy quit selling most of its sedans. Likewise, as many brands quit selling gas cars, those not ready to make the switch to electric will flock to brands like Toyota that still offer cars that run on gas, even if they are hybrids. This won't make up for all the customers that Toyota will lose by not having EVs, but it could help Toyota. This is a fairly strange comment to make. I don't think the author has thought this through. There is going to be an enormous amount of ICE vehicles available. The opposite will be the issue here. There'll be too many of these. There'll be so many of them available. People will be lining up to these wait lists that will go on for 12 months to wait for an EV. There will be literally millions of ICE vehicles available. Manufacturers will continue to make them because they'll have no choice. Many manufacturers in the world are just not prepared for this situation. It won't only be Toyota. There'll be a number of them. There'll probably be 10 big automakers that won't be fully prepared and that aren't fully prepared now. So saying that somehow Toyota will just take up all those sales, which might be like 10% of the entire global automotive industry by, say, 2026, 27, 28, 10%, that's not a very big number. And so magically Toyota will just take up all those sales when still companies like Ford, General Motors, etc., Nissan, Honda, etc. will still be making ICE vehicles. They'll all be competing over a very small pie. That's what will really be happening. So I'm not sure the point. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on. Today, Toyota has the Sienna and Venza as hybrid-only models. The Corolla, Camry, RAV4, and the Highlander all offer hybrid models, and the RAV4 offers a plug. Toyota could drop the non-hybrid models as it can and do some work to enable serial hybrids for many of these vehicles. You have to wonder if the Prius should just be combined with the Corolla at this point. Yep, I agree. It has lost its value as a way to signal your environmental concern, 100%. Anyone who is a leader in reducing emissions has long since left that brand. The painful truth is Toyota's sales are going to go down significantly, and there is nothing Toyota can do about it now. I disagree. The company should have invested in one or more EV platforms a few years ago. It needs to dramatically reduce engineering costs by dropping its research into fuel cells and most engine and transmission development other than a generator for serial hybrids and plug-in hybrids. If it cuts expenses now before it is in financial trouble, that will give the company the money it needs to invest in future technologies. But if it continues to waste billions of dollars on gas engines and hydrogen fuel cells, it's unlikely the company will survive without a massive bailout. Now, on the issue of hydrogen, let's have a look at this. A Toyota Prius with hydrogen-fueled combustion engine is coming in 2025. It will use the same hydrogen-powered combustion engine from the Corolla. So Toyota have no plans to ditch the Prius. They'll continue with this model and use a hydrogen-powered engine. The current fourth-generation Toyota Prius is aging. It was introduced in 2015. It's in dire need of a revamp. Despite the number of refreshes and special editions we see each year, it's basically a bucket of shit right now. It is. It's just old, and there's nothing else to say about it. Now, if you're waiting for a new version of the Prius, a report from Japan suggests that it's arriving as early as next year, specifically by December 2022. However, there is more to the upcoming model than the current 1.8-litre engine plus electric motor setup. Apparently, Best Car says this involves a hydrogen-powered combustion engine. Now, in contrast to hydrogen fuel cells, Toyota touts the use of hydrogen to fuel the combustion. According to the automaker, the setup emits close to zero CO2 and the same of NOx. Best Car says that they will be using the same hydrogen-powered combustion engine in the Corolla, and it will be found in the next Prius for the PHEV setup. However, it will take 3 good years before this setup will be put into practical use, which means the hydrogen-powered Prius PHEV will be arriving in 2025. In other words, Toyota are still focusing on developing hydrogen vehicles, clearly still investing in it. To make vehicles powered by hydrogen, yes, you do have to invest millions of dollars. So if you're going to comment in the comment section below saying, oh, hydrogen, Tesla haven't invested much in hydrogen, well, you're wrong. They have. They've invested millions and millions of dollars. They've admitted to this fact. So there's no point arguing against what they've admitted to. They've admitted to it. Okay, Toyota right now is wasting money developing hybrids, specifically hydrogen-powered hybrids. Where will people get this hydrogen to power their vehicles? No one is buying hydrogen vehicles because, number one, hydrogen isn't clean. So if you're a person who really cares about the environment, you're not going to buy a hydrogen vehicle because there is no such thing right now as clean hydrogen. It may never exist. Number two, you can't get hydrogen anyway. If you want a hydrogen vehicle, where will you get the hydrogen for it? 99% of the people living on planet Earth don't have access to hydrogen. So how Toyota thinks magically that's going to happen, I don't know. Let's get back to the issue. Do I believe Toyota can pivot by doing these things? The Cleantechnica article claims they can. No, it's nonsense. It's not possible. If they follow this plan, they're doomed to fail. There's several reasons I outlined that this plan doesn't make sense. It's convoluted. It's just a bunch of stepping stones. When that's what happens to companies, they try these little stepping stones and they get disrupted very, very, very quickly. Toyota has one choice only. One choice only. That is to acquire another company that is already making EVs, that has the expertise, the experience, the know-how, and use that company to try to launch off that. Potentially acquire a number of different companies in China and rebadge the vehicles as Toyotas, start selling them as Toyotas and pretend that was your plan all along. And that's the only choice I see Toyota has, because they say they're only going to have 3 million vehicles by 2030 that will be battery powered. That leaves 8 million. They sold 11 million vehicles this year. 8 million vehicles that will not be battery powered and therefore be basically unsaleable in 2030. Now, where do Toyota stand today in terms of their current plans with electrification? Well, Toyota have the BZ4X electric car, which is due in late 2022. Now, Toyota have publicly said that they won't be producing this vehicle in large volume. In fact, all the mainstream media have reported on this fact. So this vehicle believe it or not, is a compliance car, and it will be sold primarily in Europe. Now, here is what a Toyota executive said about the VZ4X. Pricing will be announced closer to introduction, but this car will be expensive, as was the original Prius that we launched back in October 2001. He said this is due to significant research and development cost recovery. Like hybrids, battery electric vehicle adoption and affordability will take time, but certainly not 20 years. They will eventually become a sustainable means of mobility. Obviously, this executive is probably at risk of being fired, but for saying this because he clearly disagrees with Toyota's CEO, who has said electric mobility is not the future. Let's move on from that though, and have a look at what he has said here. This car will be expensive, as was the original Prius. This is due to significant research and development cost recovery. Like hybrids, battery electric vehicle adoption and affordability will take time, but certainly not 20 years. They will eventually become a sustainable means of mobility. So Toyota is saying they need to recover their costs of development into electric vehicles, so therefore their electric vehicles will be expensive. They're openly admitting to this fact. This is a direct quote. I haven't manipulated this or changed it in any way. In other words, Toyota has zero intention, zero plans, and zero hope of competing with any Chinese automaker currently in existence. Remember, you've seen many of the videos on this channel, I'm sure, showing you that there are electric cars right now that are cheaper than the equivalent petrol version from Toyota, and better. Cheaper and better. They're faster, they're more luxurious, they look better. They're cheaper and they're better, and they're already powered by batteries. These companies are not trying, it would appear to be the case, are not trying to recoup their significant research and development cost. So, how they're managing to do that, I don't know. I don't think anybody really knows the true answer to that question. But the point is, Toyota plans on releasing a limited edition electric vehicle. Let's call it what it is, a limited edition electric vehicle at the end of 2022 that will be expensive, in their words. Now, clearly, this is not a competitor for any Chinese company on the market right now, and the Chinese are in position to completely disrupt Toyota. Even Tesla is in that position. Now, back in 1997, Toyota was the world's first car maker to introduce hybrid powertrains in mass-produced cars. Now, while Toyota invested heavily in hybrids, it is working today to delay the transition to EVs. It still does not have a mass-produced electric vehicle, and it's pushing Congress to slow down the shift to EVs. In fact, it's lobbying all over the world to slow down the shift to EVs with fear-mongering and lies. Now, in contrast to the vast majority of car makers who have already launched EVs like General Motors, Ford, Tesla, BYD, Mercedes-Benz, NIO, XPeng, BMW, Audi, Volkswagen, Jaguar, Mini, Fiat, Mazda, Nissan, Honda, and Kia, Toyota still does not have an EV in its lineup and is opposing stricter emissions limits and electric vehicle initiatives around the world. Now, in explaining its reasoning behind its slow take up on electric cars, a company spokesperson said, Toyota is able to produce enough batteries for 28,000 electric cars each year, or 1.5 million hybrid cars. One other important factor for its emissions. Toyota says that selling 1.5 million hybrid cars reduces carbon emissions by a third more than selling 28,000 electric cars. So to put it simply, Toyota has the ability to build and sell 28,000 electric cars per year. In the last quarter, Tesla just sold and delivered 241,000 electric vehicles. There is no way that Toyota can pivot from this situation. It is now too late. Thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.